Welcome to Military Matrix. In an age when geopolitical fault lines shift faster than ever, the technology of war remains the sharpest instrument of state power. We stand at a potential inflection point. Reports and debates circle a single, consequential possibility: the transfer of the West's signature long-range cruise missile, the BGM-109 Tomahawk, to Ukraine. This is not merely an addition to Kyiv's inventory. The arrival of Tomahawk capability would allow strikes deep into Russian-held territory, targeting logistics hubs, command nodes, and air bases far from frontline positions. More than hardware, it would represent a collision of two competing doctrines of modern warfare: the West's patient, precision-oriented method versus Russia's pursuit of hypersonic shock. It is a clash personified by the Tomahawk and the Zircon, the methodical sniper and the lightning bolt. The Tomahawk is a veteran weapon, a proven instrument of Western power projection since the 1980 seconds. At its essence, it is a small unmanned jet wings, turbine engine, and a one-way mission with a warhead often around 450 kilograms. Its defining quality is not speed but cunning. Flying at subsonic speeds about Mach 0.75, the missile's lethality derives from sophisticated mission planning and layered navigation. Operators chart complex, low-altitude routes that exploit gaps in air defenses, and the missile then executes those plans with a combination of GPS guidance, terrain contour matching, TERCOM, and digital scene matching area correlator, DSMAC. TERCOM lets the missile compare downward radar scans with preloaded terrain maps to verify position without relying solely on GPS. DSMAC lets it match onboard imagery to stored satellite photos in the terminal phase, refining aim until it strikes within meters. This redundancy makes it difficult to defeat. Flying low keeps it under many radar horizons, and alternative guidance methods blunt the effect of jamming. Over time, the Tomahawk family evolved into a flexible, networked weapon. The Block 4 Tactical Tomahawk introduced a two-way satellite data link that enabled in-flight retargeting. Block V improves navigation and resilience and adds variants with multi-effect warheads capable of penetrating hardened structures or fragmenting for soft target destruction. Tomahawks launch from an array of platforms: U.S. Navy destroyers and cruisers via vertical launch systems, and submarines through torpedo tubes, giving naval forces global reach. It has a long combat pedigree from Desert Storm through operations in the Balkans, Afghanistan, Libya, and Syria. At roughly $1.5, $2 million per missile, Tomahawks are not cheap but are economical compared to manned sorties, allowing use in mass to overwhelm defenses. Yet the Tomahawk carries inherent vulnerabilities. Its subsonic speed, while compatible with stealthy, terrain-hugging flight, becomes a liability against a peer-level integrated air defense system. Modern radar's airborne or networked ground arrays can detect and cue interceptors. Systems such as Russia's S-400 or S-350 and point defenses like Panzer S-1 and Tor M2 are tailored to counter cruise missiles. Electronic warfare that denies GPS or disrupts data links forces the missile to rely on backup systems, increasing miss probability. In a high-end peer conflict, Tomahawks could face heavy attrition. Their power lies in numbers and precision, not in vulnerability. Russia's response to the changing strategic landscape is epitomized by the 3M22 Zircon, a hypersonic cruise missile designed primarily as an anti-ship weapon. Unlike the Tomahawk's methodical subsonic flight, Zircon is reportedly a scramjet-powered missile flying at Mach 8.9. That velocity compresses the enemy's kill chain. Detection, identification, decision, and engagement must be executed in seconds instead of minutes or hours. Hypersonic speed challenges both detection and interception. Interceptors like the SM-6 were conceived for lower-speed targets. Tracking and hitting a maneuvering object at Mach 8 is a problem that pushes current defenses towards their limits. The extreme heat generated at hypersonic speeds can create a plasma sheath that impedes radar returns, further complicating tracking. The destructive effect of kinetic energy at hypersonic velocity magnifies the damage potential even with a compact warhead. A strike against a large vessel by a hypersonic projectile could inflict mission-killing damage due to sheer impact energy. Yet Zircon's promise is tempered by significant constraints. Hypersonic technology is complex and very expensive. Production numbers will be limited compared to mass-produced subsonic cruise missiles. Moreover, targeting a moving warship hundreds of miles away presents a thorny problem. A carrier steaming at speed will change position significantly in the minutes it takes any long-range weapon to arrive. For effective strikes, Zircon must rely on a robust sensor-to-shooter chain, satellites, maritime patrol assets, submarines, electronic intelligence, and reconnaissance networks to provide near real-time location data. If those sensors are degraded, deceived, or denied, the missile's terminal seeker required to autonomously find and lock a moving target through plasma at hypersonic speed becomes the critical technical hurdle. Place these systems on a battlefield, and the differences are stark. Consider Tomahawks moved into Ukrainian service and launched in a coordinated salvo against Russian Black Sea Fleet facilities or Crimean air bases. The missiles would traverse long, low-altitude routes across open sea, using complex waypointing to evade known radars. Russian air defenses would activate across layered belts, long-range S-400 seconds and S-350 seconds, supplemented by point defenses, and electronic warfare units like Krasuka-4 would work to jam GPS and data links. Some Tomahawks would be intercepted. Others, guided by TERCOM and DSMAC, or benefiting from favorable conditions, would reach targets with surgical precision. The Tomahawk's advantage is its ability to saturate defenses with persistent, accurate strikes over long distances, a tool for dismantling command and control, logistics, and air power basing with relatively low risk to launch platforms. Flip the tape and envisage a salvo of Zircons launched from a Russian frigate or submarine against a U.S. carrier strike group. The engagement timeline collapses. A launch hundreds of miles away could reach the carrier in minutes, leaving only a fleeting window for detection and interception. Aegis-equipped escorts would detect the incoming hypersonic objects and attempt to engage with SM-6 interceptors, electronic warfare, decoys, and last-ditch close-in weapon systems like phalanx. Yet each defensive layer suffers from compressed reaction time. Interceptors lack margin to chase down a Mach 8 maneuvering target. Decoys may be ineffective against sophisticated seekers, and CIWS must function within a split-second terminal window. Even a single successful strike could devastate a carrier's flight deck and air wing, producing catastrophic operational and symbolic consequences. The psychological effect is equally potent. The mere threat that carriers can be neutralized at distance forces operational changes, potentially pushing carrier operations farther from contested areas and diminishing their reach. Strategically, the Tomahawk and the Zircon illuminate divergent doctrines. The Tomahawk embodies Western conventional thinking, methodical application of precision fires, network targeting, and the ability to attrit an adversary's systems through sustained campaigns. It scales. The Zircon, conversely, exemplifies asymmetric deterrence, a smaller number of high-end, psychologically powerful weapons intended to deny access and impose prohibitive risk to an opponent's high-value platforms. The existence of hypersonic anti-ship weapons challenges the assumption of uncontested sea control and forces reconsideration of force posture, dispersal, and the architecture of naval operations. For the U.S. Navy, which is organized around the carrier strike group for decades, weapons like Zircon signal a disruptive era. Carriers have been a central instrument of global power projection. Mobile air bases that bring roles once reserved for forward bases to international waters. If carriers can be held at risk by a relatively small inventory of hypersonic weapons, the Navy must adapt, invest in defensive measures, alter operating patterns, develop distributed lethality concepts, and accelerate its own hypersonic programs. For Russia, hypersonic missiles are a means of leveling the playing field. They need not match U.S. numerical supremacy at sea if they can present a credible threat to its most valuable tools. Beyond the bilateral dynamic, proliferation matters. Hypersonic technology is not unique to Russia. Other states pursue similar capabilities. As more actors field faster, harder to intercept systems, the global strategic environment becomes more volatile. Shorter decision cycles increase the risk of miscalculation, raise the premium on resilient, distributed sensing architectures, especially space-based assets, and force investments in next-generation interceptors and electronic warfare measures. The cost equation shifts. Defenders must spend more to protect valued platforms, and attackers must balance the high expense of hypersonic weapons against their limited stockpiles. Yet it would be a mistake to view the Tomahawk as obsolete. The slow, deliberate war of precision attrition remains relevant. Many military objectives denying supply lines, neutralizing fixed infrastructure, crippling airfields, striking command nodes are well matched to what Tomahawk-like systems do best. Their network flexibility, mid-course retargeting, and survivable launch platforms provide strategic options in prolonged campaigns. They also fit within an economy of force. Thousands of cheaper, accurate missiles can exhaust an adversary's air defenses in ways that rare, expensive hypersonics cannot. Tomahawk strikes can be shaped, retasked, and coordinated with other joint effects to achieve cumulative impact. In a contested environment where hypersonics complicate naval operations, cruise missiles still enable persistent long-range fires that shape the battlefield over hours and days rather than minutes. Operationally, the contest between these two paradigms will drive innovation on both offense and defense. Defenders will expand distributed sensors, adding more airborne early warning, maritime patrol, undersea assets, and, most critically, resilient space-based architectures to provide continuous tracking. They will pursue new interceptors capable of engaging hypersonic threats in the glide and terminal phases, and develop layered electronic and cyber measures to confuse, blind, or spoof seekers. Attackers will refine seekers that can operate through plasma, improve mid-course updates, and invest in mass and salvo tactics that combine different weapon types to complicate defenses. The future battlefield may be one where a single engagement involves multiple classes of weapons: subsonic cruise missiles probing and saturating sensors, supersonic and hypersonic weapons exploiting gaps, electronic warfare degrading targeting, and kinetic interceptors attempting last-resort defeats. Politically and doctrinally, these changes carry weighty implications. If Tomahawks reach Ukraine, the Kremlin faces new vulnerabilities on its periphery that could shift operational calculations and escalate political stakes. The West must reconcile the operational benefits of greater Ukrainian strike capability with risks of escalation and the challenge of protecting the sensor networks that enable long-range targeting. Conversely, the deployment of hypersonic anti-ship weapons and the perception that they can neutralize strategic assets could embolden more assertive postures and increase the tempo of arms racing. The international community must confront the reality that faster weapons compress the timeline for crisis management and diplomatic de-escalation. At a human level, the spectacle of modern warfare is changing. No longer is victory solely about numbers of tanks or aircraft. It is about the ability to sense, decide, and strike faster than an adversary can respond. The most valuable resources may be not only missiles, but the intelligence, architectures, and human systems that feed them. Space, cyber, and electronic domains are elevated from support roles to central battlegrounds. The complexity of orchestrating a successful strike, integrating satellites, signals intelligence, airborne assets, and cyber effects becomes as important as the missile itself. Equally, defending against these layered threats requires integrated training, resilient logistics, and doctrines that accept risk management under compressed timelines. Ultimately, the Tomahawk versus Zircon comparison is emblematic of a broader shift, a transition from the long wars of attrition and precision to a future where speed, shock, and information dominance contest traditional metrics of power. Neither system is purely superior. Each exploits different operational logics and creates distinct vulnerabilities. The Tomahawk remains the backbone of deliberate, controllable power projection, a weapon for shaping and sustaining campaigns over time. The Zircon signals a disruptive capability that can deny access and impose psychological and operational shocks at sea. As these technologies converge on the same theaters, commanders and policymakers are forced to rethink long-standing assumptions about force composition, platform survivability, and the architecture of deterrence. The matrix of military power is being rewritten not only by metal and fuel, but by networks, sensors, doctrine, and the political choices that shape their use. This is Military Matrix, a world where precision and patience meet speed and shock, where the balance of risk, cost, and capability will determine who controls the battle spaces of the 21st century.